As many members may know, today is the anniversary of the 50th anniversary of when Dr. King was assassinated. Growing up in Atlanta for a period of time, my parents were getting their master's in divinity. I was able to visit his house as a child and go to his tombstone, and later went to Memphis to where the actual hotel's been converted to a civil rights museum. So, Mr. President, I just want to talk about his last moments while he was in Memphis. While he was in Memphis, Mr. President, he warned protesters not engaged to violence. He was there for the sanitation workers for their strikes, and went there to just be support. He argued that the peaceful demonstrations would be the best course of action and the only guarantee that their demands would be heard and answered. Regarding the civil rights movement, Dr. King demanded that the United States defend its rights for all its citizens. While it's promised the United States Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and stated that he would never give up the natural rights that were protected. And permission to read, Mr. President?
Go right ahead.
Somewhere I read the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read the freedom of the press. And somewhere I read the greatness of America is the rights to protest for its rights. And just as I said, we're not going to let the dogs and the water hoses turn around. We're not going to let any injunction turn us around. Mr. President, the social issue, again, towards the end of the speech that Dr. King was giving, he refers to threats against him and his life. It seems to foreshadow his impending death, but reaffirming that he was not afraid to die. Again, Mr. President, to read, permission to read?
Go right ahead.
In his speech, Mr. President, he says, "Well, I don't know what will happen now. We got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter now because I've been to the mountaintop. And I don't mind, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about now. I just want to do God's will." He answered to me, "Going upon the mountain. I looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but you want to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to that promised land. I'm so happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory and the coming of the Lord." The language to some, Mr. President, have seemed to be a prophecy that Dr. King was referring to the deaths that were going to come about later on that week. Some events people have described the biblical book of Deuteronomy, in that Moses led his people of Israel to follow him to the afterlife in the promised land. But Moses was informed by God because of an incident that he did not allow to follow God's directions. He did not reach the land himself, but was only be able to see it from a distance. Again, permission to read, Mr. President?
Go right ahead.
"Then Moses climbed to Mount Nubu, where the Lord showed him the whole land. And the Lord said unto him, This is the land I promised you, unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will let you see with your eyes, but you will not cross over it." Deuteronomy 31:4, chapters 1 through 4. Shortly after that, Mr. President, Moses died, and his successor Joshua led the people into the promised land. Mr. President, I am still hopeful for that day that we will reach the promised land. Thank you.